Do, do, do.
We're going live on YouTube.
I know. It's so exciting.
Awesome. It's working now, huh?
Yeah. We had to like press a couple of things.
Right, right.
Alrighty. It looks like we are live.
Yes,
Woohoo. Here we are. We're live.
we are live. I think this is the first time we're actually doing live, so it's exciting.
Yay.
Yeah.
Well, hello, Kathy. How are you today?
I'm good. Thank you. How are you?
Good. Hanging in there.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
good.
Experiencing some technical issues, which is like always the bane of my existence, but is what it is.
You know, I think before all this craziness, somehow my threshold for some of this was not as high as it might seem right now. Not to say that it's very high right now, but it's just like, it just seems not as big of a deal. You're like, oh, okay, this is not working. It's not working. It's almost like you intuitively know that the universe is just throwing at you all these things, and at some point this is just like a little glitch in the way, because everything else has just been so rough, and somehow we've managed to move through it.
Yeah, 100%. I'm just like, okay, guess I'm gonna be taking it easy today. Like I had a
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, and I think it's just become a lot more of a understanding. People are, it's first of all, it's easier to express that. Before we would sweat about it, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is not working. So I think it's easier to accept that, and also easier for other people to just know that, okay, things are not happening. So I think that in itself is a great thing that we're all learning.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those things where it's just like I would fight that tooth and nail a year ago, and now I'm just like,
yeah.
It is what it is. It is what it is. I'll fiddle with it a little bit, and if I can get it to work, great, and if it doesn't, we'll try again tomorrow.
Right. So I totally agree with you, but go ahead. You were saying something.
No, that's it.
Oh, okay.
That's it. So what else is shaking with you? How have you been in this past week? It's been
so good. I think we talked about resting and sort of giving ourselves the permission to rest and recover, and just not do things when our bodies and our minds are needing a little break. One thing that I'm experiencing, and I think it's a combination of different things, is my body, my shoulder is just a lot of discomfort. And I think it comes from different, there are different reasons for it. One of it is just, I've been sort of holding off on my pre-pandemic routine of doing some exercises. At least, it was more frequent, and, obviously with everything else, things are not the same. I haven't really been doing the way I used to do. And I think my expectation was like, oh, I'm exactly where I was before this. And that's not true. My body just needs a lot more prepping, and also just understanding. So that's one thing I think I must have pushed myself. Also, it's a cold season. It's winter. Our bodies are just more tense, and they need a lot slower and warm and loving, nurturing movements to really feel it. So I think that, I sort of totally didn't really look into that. And again, you have that in a combination of stress, any sort of stress magnifies what's happening. So it's the right shoulder, and I was experiencing some really major spasms in my right shoulder. And I was talking to a couple of friends, and a lot of people are just feeling these really tense spots in their bodies. And we were talking about that, and how it's almost a little bit of a mind-body trick that, of course there's a physical component to it, but whatever we do in terms of our mindfulness, we can use that time to also think about those tight spots in the body to send in some fresh, loving breath and really
Yeah.
loosen it up to some extent just by our thoughts and our sort of just that inner vibration. So I've been working on that a little bit, and it has helped. Just, taking it easy, warming it up, putting some warm patches. But it's interesting because I feel like a lot of people are going through that. It's either that or disruptions in sleep patterns. Just like they're just popping up with
Yeah.
this time of the year.
Yeah. And for me personally, like up until I would say probably January of this year, I was training with a personal trainer 2 times a week and doing like weightlifting and all that sort of stuff. And I hurt my back again. And so I put everything on pause. And I haven't really, I like didn't really do too much other than just like walking for the better part of this year. And I tried to do like one of the Beachbody morning meltdown workouts. Oh my goodness. I was so sore for like an entire week. It was crazy how sore my body was. And I probably about a month ago started picking up doing just yoga, even if it's just 15 minutes a day. And I find now that when I'm not doing that yoga, like my anxiety is higher. My body just is like, you need to just move. So I've been trying to do a combination of like yoga or just like going for a walk and nothing like crazy
Absolutely
strenuous. And I find that really, really helps. When I've done strenuous things or even like an intense yoga, I'm just like, my energy gets so zapped from doing that. And in the past that would actually bring me energy. And now it's like, it's zapping my energy and it's not going the other way. I'm just like, okay, it's time to take a nap, and I think we have to listen to that. I think we have to listen to that.
It's interesting because I've heard that a lot of people have noticed that their regular routine, specifically when it comes to exercise and movement, they've noticed that what used to work before the pandemic is not necessarily working. And, I think it depends on the personality, the way we are. Some people really do thrive on a little bit more high impact and, these intense cardio, which, by the way, I feel like there's this misconception about cardio and weight training. I think both are amazing. Our bodies actually need both of them for different reasons. There's this whole notion that, you don't need to do cardio, that's overrated. But cardio is actually really good for our cardiovascular health. And we need to do that to some level. But knowing that what we need right now may be different because we're using a lot of our overall energy and our mental processing. So our baseline is different from what it used to be. And the body is just naturally more stiff. There's this one quote that I really love. It says, "Strength overused is a liability." And I think that is such a true statement that we don't really pay attention to. Just because something is strong and good and full force, we don't do it because it can become a liability. And I think that, injuries that come from exercising, even gentle yoga, believe it or not, yoga can have some of a lot of people get injured doing yoga, even gentle yoga. We have to be really careful in sort of doing the poses. And a lot of it comes from intuition, which is, obviously something that we don't really cultivate as much. I think culturally also, we haven't really been paying attention to it because we just don't think what we know is not right. There's like all this information out there about what you should be doing and what you should not be doing. So, when you have all this information, it's really easy not to trust yourself.
Yeah.
And there's like all these forces that are against you. So for me personally, I had to really recalibrate and do certain things. Again, I had to go back to very basics, just doing some really gentle twists and stretches, a few times a day, but like very short increments.
Yeah. But you're so flexible.
And that's a liability. It can become a liability because
watching you on Instagram and I'm like, oh my goodness, like, how is she doing that?
It's actually and people that are flexible get injured the most, because what you sort of at some point dissociate your muscle strength and you rely on flexibility. So, and I'm not saying everybody, but people that are flexible sometimes will not strengthen the muscles as much as they need to, because they rely on the flexibility. And I think, and I try to sort of keep make sure that I'm doing the other part, but it's sometimes, in the heat of the moment. And then, sometimes you just want to do those poses. It's not about only the physical sort of benefits. It's just like a holistic mental thing. You just, you need to go to a different space and experience something, and, and then you pay dearly for it. But
I was just watching you do, like, you had like your foot out with you holding like your opposite arm and your opposite foot with your leg like totally straight. And I'm like, I haven't been able to do that since I was like 16. And then you're doing like your handstands, and I'm like, oh my goodness. I'm like,
and actually handstands are something that I need to probably not do as much, because, my body is getting beaten up. But, again, it's like sometimes we want to do these fun stuff because it's not only about the physical thing, it's mental. We want to do something, push ourselves, but just gauging and knowing. And it's a good metaphor for everything we do in life. What we it's just that constant balance of pushing and recovering, and also knowing that balance is not the same different under different circumstances, different seasons. Are such a intuitive and important aspect of our lives, Jamie, that we don't really pay attention to, like really being in tune with how the weather is changing, the shifts. What we do in winter doesn't necessarily work with what we do in summertime. And I've also gotten really interested in astrology lately. I don't know if I've told you. What's interesting is there's also this scientific part to it, but there's this other side that doesn't really make sense. But from what I'm understanding, and I don't know if you know this is a crazy, crazy time for astrology. I know I'm jumping into a lot of different topics right now, but I'm so excited about it because it also explains a lot of these crazy things that are happening on a personal and on a global level with all of us. So there are two major planets that are apparently going to be colliding. Well, not colliding, but there's a great conjunction that's coming. And it does affect some of the stuff that we're feeling and experiencing. And not to say that, we don't have free will, but knowing that that's coming also is such a great sort of revelation. Anyhow, I was just too excited about this.
Yeah, I love that stuff. I actually decided that I'm taking a human design course because I found so much truth in so much of the human design stuff for myself, because I'm a projector, and that's like we can work really, really hard for short periods of time, and then we need to rest. And I have found in my work that I'm also seeing patterns with clients. Like I have a lot of one-on-one projector clients. Most of my people in my group are generators, and I'm seeing all these patterns with the types of businesses and all that sort of stuff. So I was like, I want to dig deeper into this and see how I can apply that to the business stuff that I'm doing. But you said something earlier that I want to touch upon, and I have this, this has been a year for me that has been lesson after lesson in trusting my gut. And
I love how you put it on a Post-it note. I love it.
Love it. I'm reminded of it every single day. And I think we're so, I know for me, I was like conditioned out of, when I was younger, ignoring my gut. Like it's not the right advice, or it's not the right thing, just because it's like your brain would say one thing and logic says another. And then you like put pen to paper and do your like SWOT analysis to say, oh, is this the right decision? And ultimately there's been I can't even count how many instances this year alone where am like, if I had trusted my gut in the first place, I wouldn't be in this position. And I would say, I don't know, probably about 2 or 3 months ago, I really just have been
Took a leap.
feeling, what was that?
No, I said it seems like you took a leap.
I did. Yeah. And I've really just been like, okay, I'm going to just, it doesn't always make sense. And I try to give myself, because like projectors, especially, we shouldn't ever be making snap decisions, right? We need to ride the wave of the feelings that we're feeling and then like sleep on it or wait a couple of days and then make a decision. And for me, I've been honoring that process. So when people are like pressuring me to make a decision or pressuring me, I'm just like, look, I need 2 days. Like once I have 2 days, I'll know. And I've really just been trying to like trust what my body is telling me in terms of decisions. And it's bizarre the things that have unfolded in a good way as a result of me doing that. And for those that are listening that are like, I'm very strategic and very logical. So it's like, in many instances, it's like, I'm not sure this is the right decision, but I'm going to go with it. And I've been doing that. And it's really kind of crazy to see the things that have been unfolding as a result of that trusting. And it's kind of crazy. Like I have on my desk that book, The Body Keeps the Score, and I haven't read it. And multiple people have said, you need to read that. You need to read that. And to me, it's just like, we just need to sometimes slow down and listen and honor. Like we need quiet to do that.
So important. And I want to say something that you said right now before I forget, the whole trusting our gut. What also is happening with this crazy shift that's going with the astrology and the stars, the contradictions in our own personality, because, we all have these different sides. And, based on, I ordered this 50-page report on my chart over the weekend, Jamie. Like, I'm so into this. And, I'm taking all this with a grain of salt, obviously. But I know for a fact that I have these two very different sides, one which is very analytical and process oriented. And then there's this Aquarius part of me, which is, by the way, we're going to be entering the age of Aquarius in about a couple of weeks, is also very spontaneous and likes to do these things. But trusting our gut when we have these two different sides, and at different times, they might be giving us different messages.
Yeah.
And, it's like your heart says something, your brain says something else. And I know we like to say, go with your heart, and sometimes, but there's this really beautiful flow of kind of like dancing that you don't really ignore one side. You try to coexist. We can't really get rid of the parts that we don't maybe necessarily like or appreciate about ourselves. It's part of who we are. It's kind of like acknowledging it, but trying to coexist and sort of manage it.
Yeah. I had an astrology reading done, I don't know, probably a year ago now. And I got to go back and listen to that because it was like really, really powerful. And it was pretty crazy. This woman who I had never met before, all she had was my astrology chart and the information that she was able to extract from that about me. And like, look, I'm sure she can probably look some of it up online. Like I'm pretty whatever. And I don't know if she did that or not, but like, it was like, wow, this is like crazy information that you have extracted from that about my personality. And that's part of why I like the human design stuff so much. Cause it's like, ultimately it's like astrology meets Strength Finder,
Absolutely. Everything is so personalized. And I think it's great that you, as a business owner, somebody who works with entrepreneurs, not many people really take the step to go into the details of the human aspect of it. And for you to, first of all, acknowledge it and be interested and use that as a tool to really connect, because, it's all about the connections and understanding, right? That's such a great, step.
Yeah.
I think it's amazing. And I think it's fun.
It's it's so fun. And I also think it allows me, and like, I hate the word coach. I'm not a huge fan of that, but like, whatever you want to call it, for me as an advisor, right? If I can understand that this person has these things that are going to come up for them, how much better of an advantage does that give me to be able to support them better? And it's like, I've always intuitively kind of noticed these patterns, but now I'm like, okay, this person's a generator with, X, Y, and Z. They tend to struggle to get visible. How can I better put supports in place, knowing
Absolutely.
that stuff's going to
Absolutely.
come up? And I think that not a lot of people want to do that, number one. And I think so oftentimes in business and in life, we want to like plug everybody into these holes, like, here, put in this box,
Like
in this
different
box.
categories.
Yeah. And to me,
Uh-huh.
like, I just don't see people like that. Like, I don't know. I don't see people
No.
like that. And so for me, it's always like, well, how can I take this thing and make it simple for you? Because what's simple for you is different for somebody else. And I think when you can kind of coalesce all these pieces together, that's where the magic happens. And I think so many people, I don't know if they're afraid, or I don't know, they just they opt not to do that stuff. And I think for so many of us, whether you're looking at business or life or even education, like, I look at my children, right? Like, if you can apply these things to the different areas of your life and you're able to operate from a truer sense of who you are, magic happens.
Absolutely, absolutely. And just, I think we haven't really talked about this that much, at least until recently. I think it's been easier to do it in different categories, like most things we do in life.
Yeah.
First of it is just that sense of uncomfort
Yeah.
that, you can't really um classify
Yeah.
personalities and people and certain things. It makes it more challenging, but that's how we are. And if anything, what's happening this year is just magnifying that aspect of us, and how this sort of right brain and left brain really do need to work together, and they do have this complementary, just such a beautiful complementary way of doing things. And if we do want to thrive as human beings, whatever business or whatever career that we have, as a personal and a professional requirement, we do need to pay attention to
Yeah.
all these different things. It's if anything, people that are more analytic and scientific and black or white really need to stretch themselves and learn more from the other side, and vice versa. It's just the way, it's the harmony.
Yeah, 100%. And I also, Brene Brown comes to mind, right? I've listened to her book. It's not truly a book. It's just an audio that she recorded. It's the Gifts of Imperfect Parenting, I believe is the name of it. And it is amazing to listen to. It doesn't matter how old your kids are. It's a really, really good listen. And she talks about that, and like the vulnerability to truly be yourself. And for me, I've spent way too much money and so much time in the past, I don't know, 3 or 4 years, just really peeling back the layers of armor that I had on that just weren't who I truly was. And I don't know, I can say for the first time with like 100% certainty, I feel like myself. Like, I feel like I can show up and I can do the things, and I feel worthy of doing the things that I'm doing. And none of that would have happened if I hadn't gone through all the things that I've gone through, but also like none of that would have happened without this year. Like, this year has literally brought me to my knees in so many ways. And but it's also shown me like how wildly capable I am. And in many ways, it's really kind of forced me to trust my gut in some ways, for better or for worse. It's like, just so many amazing things have happened. And we talked about gratitude last time. Like, I'm so very grateful for that. And I think at the end of the day, like, when we can truly be ourselves and truly be authentic and truly be vulnerable, then we can truly show up to for others, right? For others and for ourselves. But until we do that for ourselves, it's really hard to do that for other people. And I think what's happening in our world today is so much of this peeling back for people, and a lot of people want to resist that. Right?
Absolutely.
Because
Absolutely. It's
it's
not something that we're used to.
no, it's uncomfortable. And I think that for some of us, we'll come out on the other side of this transformed. And I think for others, I mean, if this happened even 10 years ago, I probably would have come out on the other side with more armor on and not less. And I think, that's just the nature of
Yeah.
this situation. But I try to look at it, in spite of everything that's going on, as a way in which to just look at it as an opportunity and find gratitude.
Right. And I do want to highlight that it's okay to have very contradictory feelings about this year. I think as
Yeah.
soon as I sort of reflect on it, and I absolutely agree with you. I think I am so grateful in some ways. And there's this part of me that's like, well, so many people are going through so much pain that I may not necessarily be experiencing. So it's my gratitude in some sense is just like this um selfish expression of I'm okay, I'm overall I'm gratitude, but it's not. I mean, it's been messy, it's been horrible, and it's been beautiful, and
Yeah.
there is so much gratitude, and that's exactly what it is. It's okay to feel that and be
Yeah.
okay with it, and not feel like this sense of guilt of it doesn't have to be this sort of typical year where things are either good or bad. It's okay. It's been a very profound year,
Yeah.
with a lot of heightened emotions that are absolutely all over the place,
Yeah.
and in such a beautiful way.
Agreed. For me, my husband and I were talking about this year, and I had a client even bring it up to me, like, there's a lot of amazing things and good things going on, and there's a lot of hardship going on. And we were trying to talk about, like, as a family, like, what can we do with our privilege? And I realize I am, like, incredibly privileged. What can we do to help and support, and, like, even in whatever way that is, right? So we're probably going to do some community stuff. We're going to do, a whole bunch of different things. We made this whole list. But even some of my friends, like, a lot of where I live is very, very, very big population of hospitality workers. Like, I know so many friends who have made their living bartending or waitressing or this and that and the other, and their whole world has been completely obliterated. And I look and say, like, what can I do to help and support in that way? And for me, I've also too been like, I've tried to make a point to, like, reach out to those people and be like, look, how can I help you? Like, I know how to do this online thing. Like, how can I help you do something where you can monetize online, or you could this or that or the other? And I think, and I'm not saying that like, oh, look at me. I'm saying it like, there are so many little things that we can also do from our position of whatever you want to call it, to also make an impact. And it doesn't need to be a monetary donation, because I've also had a lot of people like, well, just can't afford to monetarily whatever. Well, invest a little bit of time, or just, check in on people. Like, that's the other, yeah, like, it's hard right now. Like, we're on a lockdown again, and it's just like, I don't see it ending.
At least
anytime.
another 2-3 months of going further down.
Yeah.
I absolutely agree with you. And it's interesting you say that you had this talk with the family. We had exactly the same thing over the weekend, and we were talking about gratitude and how gratitude in itself shouldn't really stop. Gratitude is a first step for action. It's a feeling that needs to, if we really want to use gratitude to its true sacred definition, it's basically a feeling that you feel to sort of prime us to take the next step
Yeah.
and do something, either be a better person in terms of our thoughts and our emotions, but most importantly, our actions, reflected in our own lives, and then most importantly, in our community and service and what we do externally. And I think
Yeah.
that tends to get missed quite a bit in the
Yeah.
conversation that we have around, gratitude.
One-
But it is so powerful.
100%. And it is funny because this conversation's come out multiple times this week. And in my world, in the online industry, a lot of times too, you'll see all these people like marketing, like, here's my fancy car, here's my fancy shoes, or here's my fancy this or that or the other. And I've had so many clients who have come to me in the past, 30, 60, 90 days. And they're like, I just want to tell you, I'm so grateful that you're not one of those people who like, look at this flashy thing, or look at this other thing, or look at this other thing. And it made me realize like that is not a part of who I am. Like, yeah, sure. Like, I like nice things, but you're not going to see me spend $1,000 on a handbag or, $800 on a pair of shoes. And no, I'm not going to buy that, $500,000 yacht or any of that sort of stuff. Cause it's just like, to me, there's this balance, right? Of like, okay, I want to, I'll buy the $150 Patagonia sweatshirt, probably in part because it's really fuzzy and comfy, but also because I believe in the values that they have. And I think that there's this weird balance of things that are really shifting in like everything that we're doing, especially in my world with social media. And I think that so many people are recognizing like just how tacky
Absolutely.
some
We
of that is.
probably had this conversation early on. I think the whole structure of even influencers and the way people, things are portrayed are going to change. It's not going to be, things are not going to be stock photo-ish or these generic captions. And
Right.
I think people are really having been forced to experience real stuff. And I think just by virtue of doing these Zoom meetings and having these things, when we sort of have a different connection with people, you get to see them in their own houses and homes. And there's something magical came out of it. And people really do want to see that real thing. And I see it in myself. I really do resonate well with maybe not frequent messages from somebody that I admire, but these sort of like really, maybe I would call it sporadic, like, it's not planned, but just like these little nuggets of feelings and emotion and what people are going through. And, highlighting not only the ups, but the lows and, keeping it real. And I think those are really becoming more and more what the society and, universally we're sort of resonating. And again, this is also the shift. From what I know is the whole structure of how things used to work are not necessarily, not to say that that was bad. It was probably what we needed. And another interesting fact is last time we felt this shift was right around Renaissance, right after the Middle Ages. I mean, doesn't that kind of like really make it like, I mean, I don't know. I get goosebumps when
You gave me goosebumps when you said
I mean,
that. Yeah.
When I was talking to this lady that, I'm doing some energy working, and she's the one who really got me into it. And she says it in such a amazing way. And she's like, this way of shifting, the way the planets are aligned hasn't happened in almost 800 years. Well, this way, and then the way it's affecting the world, maybe 400, 600, up to sort of like between 400 and 600, right around the time of Renaissance, where, but also acknowledging that with any change, even if the shift is, going towards something more humanitarian, more collective and universal, the shift itself creates a lot of discomfort. It's just, because it's bringing up these conflicts that we have on a personal level, letting go of a way of life
Yeah.
no matter how it is, we're creatures of habit. It's still difficult for us. So we are all, even if we're moving towards something positive, as and we can argue this, right? But even that requires discomfort, and shifting is always hard because we get used to something. But I think just looking at it from a different angle and knowing that anything good, a change, will require us to sort of feel these things on an emotional and then physical, obviously, the way I
Yeah.
was talking about my body and all that. It's sort of, I don't know, it makes
So
a good
fascinating.
story.
So fascinating. So fascinating. Yeah. It's funny too. Like, I don't know. I hurt my back 2 years ago, and then I hurt it earlier this year. And I was going to the chiropractor all the time to like get adjusted so it wouldn't be in pain. And then I don't know, maybe it was you. You were doing yoga one day, and I was like, oh, maybe I should do yoga. Like, I saw you doing it on Instagram, and I was like, so I purchased Gaia online, and, just kind of like started to dabble in that. And literally, like, I don't want to say almost overnight, but within a week or two of doing it sort of consistently, it went away. And it's like, I think we underestimate our body's intuition for what we need in terms of like food and movement and energy and all of that sort of stuff.
Yes, it's really amazing how the capabilities that we have, and how we sort of lose that, and sort of don't really get to trust it. And I think a lot of it does have to do with this overload of information that we have, which is great, because from one standpoint, information is right at the under your fingertips, so you do have access, but it does become overwhelming. And obviously there's a lot of different thoughts. So if one gets interested and you want to research, it's just like this, you go through this whole rabbit hole of things. But again, it's really fascinating. And I think, I don't know, I feel like intuitively, I feel like we are heading towards the right direction collectively. We just all have to really try to navigate it the best we can, and also accept that there is going to be it's not going to be a smooth process.
Yeah. I keep saying to everyone, like, you need to prep that this winter is winter is coming.
Winter is coming.
Winter is coming, and it's going to be hard. And I think that people just need to mentally prepare for that. Right. And like for my own self, I know this might make me sound like paranoid slightly, but we're like, let's stock up on some food. Like, let's have some extra food in the house, simply because like, if we get sick, or, we can't go out, or we end up having to be on quarantine, or like things got like they were in March, where it was like nearly impossible to get like anything where I live. We stocked up. We like bought some board games for the kids. Like, we got some extra books that we kind of hid away. And like, we really just kind of mentally prepped. And then, it's so crazy. Like, my children are so spoiled. We have like a rock wall in their room that we built like 2 or 3 years ago that we hadn't been using. And I'm like, we're going to do this every day. Like, why are we not doing this every day? It's like such a silly little thing, but like summer happens and you don't think about it. And so it doesn't happen. It's like, we have this thing and that thing and the other thing. And it's like, I'm just trying to make it an adventure, because like when you look at it from the perspective of this is an adventure versus, oh, I have to deal with this, it like totally changes your perspective on it. And it changes the kid's tone to it as well. And I think that for me is like, I don't know what's going to happen, but let's just have fun with it. Because when we have fun with it,
absolutely, adding an element of playfulness to all this, which can be very difficult, but so necessary. And it's amazing, as you again said, how just little sense of playfulness and adventure can really change our attitude. And then obviously it's so contagious, because if as parents we feel that way, then it the kids are really receptive when it comes to sensing playfulness. Especially when it comes from parents. And I think, and oh boy, they need that so much now, because they're sensing all this discomfort, and it could really make it easier for everybody. So that's great. Here's to keeping that sense of curiosity and adventure and sense of playfulness thriving during this hibernation.
Yeah. Winter is coming, Kathy.
Winter is coming. Yes, yes, yes. It's pretty interesting how it's sort of this parallel with Game of Thrones. I don't know if you ever watched it.
Oh yeah, I
Oh
just
yeah.
rewatch. I'm in the midst of rewatching. I think for
Oh,
the third time.
amazing. I'm gonna go and do it too. I love it. Yeah. And I think there's a lot of symbolism, by the way, which is really great.
So this is my third, and like, sorry if you're not a Game of Thrones fan, people who are listening. I love that show. This is my, like, literally my third time watching it, and I've read, I would say, 3 of the books so far.
Oh, you're a hardcore. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
But it's so funny. You see so much foreshadowing and this interconnection now that I've watched it so many times that I'm like, oh my God, this is like so layered and deep, and it's really, really cool. And I'm like, they really thought this
And
out.
you can really see the correlation with what's happening in our lives, and the way, like, the whole power struggle, the, obviously the climate change,
Yeah.
and this sort of like or virus, if you want to call it, the common enemy, and all that. It's great. And I think again, it has that element of fantasy and playfulness.
Yeah.
So anything that works, that's great. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm gonna you inspired me now to go and watch it again.
Yeah, it's so good. Well, it's one of those things, like, I'm like, I can't possibly take on watching any more new shows, because I'm like, I'm very mindful of my input these days, right? But I'm like, I've watched this before. I know what to expect. Like,
Sometimes it's nice to rewatch old stuff. There's like a different, and the way our perception of how we thought of it before, and think the new perspectives that come with seeing something different, or reading a book again, rereading
100%.
it. That's really good too. So
100%.
well, awesome session, Jamie.
Yeah, awesome.
Always so good to talk to you. I feel so energized. So
likewise.
We will continue on next week.
All right. Sounds great.
Thank you again.
Yeah. Thank you.